Hello there. Today we're going to talk about books. Did you know? Did you know that's what we're going to talk about? Because that is my past, present, and future of books. What I've finished, what I'm in the middle of, and what we're going to get into. So, what I recently finished was a book called Garden Spells by Sarah Addison Allen. And it's a super cozy, witchy book. It's very magic and lovely and super whimsical. Loved it. And this book follows the story of two sisters, Claire and Sydney. They were estranged, and Sydney had gone off and, traveled around and bounced around, had a lot of really crappy relationships, ended up getting stuck in one that was absolutely terrible because she ended up getting pregnant. And so that kind of her to this horrible man until she kind of hits her breaking point where she's like, okay, I gotta go. And she has to escape. And she meets a woman who helps her get a car and a little bit of money to get the F out of Dodge and get out of the situation. So one day she shows up back at home where Claire is, and Claire has a lot of abandonment issues because her mother abandoned both the girls. Like, they grew up with their grandmother and their grandmother raised them, and they're the Waverly family, and they are a family of basically witches. They don't really say they're witches, but they're magical and they do witchy things. So they're witches. She has abandonment issues. Her mother had abandoned her, her sister abandoned her for years, and all of a sudden the sister comes back home. And so they start to repair the relationship, and her sister Sydney starts to repair herself with the help of others around her and the people in the town that they meet and the ones that still love her. And then, also, obviously there's people in town that have animosity and are buttholes as well. But it's just so cozy and rosy and nosy. It's a story of healing. It's also, you have all this lovely food and garden stuff. There's an apple tree in the backyard that seems sentient and likes to throw apples at people. And the garden is just a lovely environment. Claire has a catering company and she makes food, and the food can enhance the mood of many things, and it seems to do certain things too with magical elements to it. And it's just super cozy and rosy and nosy. And I loved it. I would highly recommend it if you're looking for a good witchy cozy book to read. All right, so what I'm in the middle of currently, I am reading Serj Tankian's Down with the System, which is a memoir of sorts. If you don't know who Serj Tankian is, he is the lead singer from System of a Down. He's done a lot of solo stuff. He's also an activist. He's brought a lot of light in talking about the Armenian genocide, which for so long was just completely ignored because in Turkey they were just trying to brush everything under the rug and deny. And he's just done a lot of great activist work over the years, calling attention to that, and just to, talk about the history of his people and his culture and all the stuff that they've gone through, and telling the story of his family and his grandfathers. And just a lot of it's really heart-wrenching, but it's also just, it's so well written, and you get just such a grasp on his identity and what music meant to him and what his activism means to him. And it's just so freaking good so far. I would highly recommend it. There's gonna be a standalone review on this. I have so many pages of notes because I don't want to F up the facts, because there is a lot to it. I think I'm trying to remember, because I've seen System of a Down several times. I think the first time I saw them was at an Ozfest back in the day, and just a fantastic band. And then getting to see too, you get all the history, so you have a lot of that. It's really just freaking tear your heart out and just sad and tragic. But then you start to get into his life too, and how the band came together, and what happened, and how, hooking up with Rick Rubin. Can I talk about how much I love Rick Rubin? Rick Rubin is amazing. If you haven't listened to his podcast Tetragrammatron, this man is a spiritual guru, even though he's not, but he totally is. His book, The Creative Act, A Way of Being, if you haven't read it yet, one of the best books on creativity ever. It's so good. If I could recommend one nonfiction book for the rest of my life, if I was only allowed one, The Creative Act, A Way of Being is what I would recommend by Rick Rubin. It's amazing. I love Rick Rubin. If I could meet one famous person, Rick Rubin. All these other people be like, that's who you want to meet? Yes. I don't care about some hot dude or some hot chick that's famous. I want to meet Rick Rubin. Anyway, all the famous people I want to meet are old dudes. David Lynch, Sam Elliott, who else? I don't know. Anyways, I digress. Serj Tankian's Down with the System is amazing so far, and I would highly recommend it. All right, so let's tell you what I'm gonna get into. So I had just been talking about that book, Garden Spells. That was recommended to me by Pamela right here on YouTube. So I read that, I loved it, and I picked up the second book because it was just so freaking cozy. I needed to see what this one's all about. So we have First Frost by Sarah Addison Allen, and I believe this was written like several years later. Let's tell you about this one. You know a little bit about the first one, so let's get into the second one. And also, there will be a standalone review coming of Garden Spells. I think it will probably be out, though, after this video. It's October in Bascom, North Carolina, and autumn will not go quietly. As temperatures drop and leaves begin to turn, the Waverly women are made restless by the whims of their mischievous apple tree and all the magic that swirls around it. But this year, First Frost has much more in store. Claire Waverly has started a successful new venture, Waverly's Candies. Though her handcrafted confections, Rose to recall lost love, Lavender to promote happiness, and Lemon Verbena to soothe throats and minds are singularly effective, the business of selling them is costing her the everyday joys of her family and her belief in her own precious gifts. Sydney Waverly, too, is losing her balance. With each passing day, she longs more for a baby, a namesake for her wonderful Henry. Yet the longer she tries, the more her desire becomes an unquenchable thirst, stealing the pleasure out of the life she already has. Sydney's daughter, Bay, has lost her heart to the boy she knows it belongs to. If only he could see it too. But how can he, when he is so far outside her grasp that he appears to her as little more than a puff of smoke? When a mysterious stranger shows up and challenges the very heart of the family, each of them must make choices they have never confronted before. And through it all, the Waverly sisters must search for a way to hold their family together through the trouble of the season of change, waiting for the extraordinary event that is the first frost. And so I can't wait to see how cozy and rosy and nosy this is. Should be fun. Okay, next up we have random drive-by bookings. That's when I just pick stuff off the shelf because maybe I like the cover or I liked the synopsis. So the first one we have is Clear by Karis Davies. Apologize if I'm saying that name wrong. Maybe it's Caris. I don't know. Well, let's tell you about it. If you could tell from that, that's had a big picture of like water. Big body of water. I love me some books by the water, by the sea, by a lake, wherever. By a river. I don't know. My favorite element is water. So let's tell you about it. Now, near the end of the Scottish clearances, in which communities of the rural poor were driven from their homes by landowners, an impoverished minister takes a job evicting a farmer, despite his own misgivings and his wife's disapproval. John travels to a remote island, where he is tasked with expelling the last remaining resident, a man named Ivar, who has been living there alone for decades. Shortly after he arrives, John falls down a cliff and knocks himself unconscious. Ivar finds him, and without knowing why the stranger has come to his island, takes him home to tend to his wounds. Soon the two men, divided by language, experience, and culture, begin to form a tentative friendship. All from hundreds of miles away, John's wife, Mary, begins to worry and sets off to find him. Unfolding within a time of tremendous upheaval, this astonishing novel takes on the interplay between language and place and the surprise of an unexpected connection. Stunning, unpredictable, always hovering just on the edge of tragedy. Clear is an unforgettable narrative of resilience, change, and hope. And I thought that sounded like it'd be kind of a beautiful story, so I have high hopes for it, and I hope that it is clear and good. So yeah, we'll see. So after that, we got a fantasy book, buddies. A Short Walk Through a Wide World by Douglas Westerbeek. All right, so what is that about? Well, I'm about to tell you. Paris, 1885. Aubrey Torval, a spoiled and stubborn 9-year-old girl, comes across a wooden puzzle ball on her walk home from school. She tosses it over a fence, only to find it in her backpack that evening. Days later, at the family dinner table, she starts to bleed to death. When medical treatment only makes her worse, she flees to the outskirts of the city, where she realizes that it is this very active movement that keeps her alive. So begins her lifelong journey around the world, constantly on the run from her disease, which won't allow her to stay anywhere for more than a few days. From the scorched dunes of the Calansio Sand Sea to the snowpack peaks of the Himalayas. From a bottomless well in a Parisian courtyard to the shelves of a spectacular underground library. We follow Aubrey as she learns to survive on her own. Along the way, she will encounter friends, enemies, and lovers, strange beasts, wild landscapes, opulent castles, and grand inventions. But the longer she wanders, and the more of her unlikely existence she dares to share with others, the clearer it becomes that the world she travels through is not quite the same as everyone else's. Vivacious, independent, and irrepressibly curious, Aubrey Torval is an unforgettable heroine searching for a meaning in life that seems otherwise impossible. A spellbinding and inspiring story of wisdom and hope for those who yearn for novelty and home alike. A short walk through the wide world reminds us that it's not the destination, but rather the journey. No matter how long it lasts, that makes us who we are. And I thought that sounded quite beautiful, and I think this one's going to be kind of great. I have high hopes. Don't let me down, book! This sounds awesome. I want to love it. I get really disappointed when the synopsis of a book sounds really great, and then I read it and like I clash with the writing. Like I hate the writing, or I hate the way stuff's described, or I just don't enjoy it, because I am a harsh DNFer, dude. There's books, like if I read the first 5 pages and I literally hate the writing, I'm like, I will DNF it. A lot of times I will give a story about at least 50 pages, and then if I can't get into it, I'm like, we just, we're not right for each other. It's like you have your best friends and then you have your acquaintances, and some of your acquaintances you don't really like. Same with books. Anyway, what have you guys been reading recently? Do you have any favorites that you've read in the past week or so? Let me know down in the comments. Anything that's really stood out that you've enjoyed quite a bit. And if you had fun hanging out today, hit that subscribe button, come back, see me again, and we'll talk about more bookish things and weird stuff.